Derrick Lewis holds the record for the most knockouts in UFC history, and it's pretty easy to see why. And to kick things off, we have an absolutely nightmarish position for Damian Grabowski. He was in a tough spot pretty early on in this one, with about 265 pounds worth of Derrick Lewis on top of him. Though the Black Beast isn't known for his top game, if he can posture up and land even one big ground and pound strike, he can finish the fight. And that's pretty much what happened here. First, it was the up-close and personal shots, then one big hammer blow from the postured up position, and the ref pretty much knew that this fight was over. Facing off against a former title challenger can be the perfect litmus test for any future contender, and when Lewis took on Gabriel Gonzaga, it took him just under a round to find the perfect moment. And when he did, he unleashed a hellacious series of shots that eventually dropped and finished his Brazilian adversary. This marked Lewis's first ever performance of the night bonus, and as you all know, it wouldn't be his last either. There were quite a few interesting things that happened in Lewis's fight with Shamil Abdurakhimov. We got to see just how Lewis's cardio and power would survive in the championship rounds, and also just how well he could do damage from the top position. In round 4, as Shamil's own pace was dipping, Lewis pushed forward, engaging his opponent in the clinch before scoring a big takedown. From there, Lewis rained down with big shots from up top before progressing to mount and getting the TKO finish. If you're tired and you have Lewis sitting on top, you're not going anywhere. And this would not be the only example of Derrick using his weight effectively that we're going to see in this video. Remember, if you're enjoying this content, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you don't miss a single upload. There was some real bad blood going into this one, as Lewis took issue with the past domestic violence allegations against Travis Brown. And so, armed with that added motivation, Lewis went out there to put a beating on his tall and rangy opponent. And that's exactly what he did, finding home for a hard shot to Brown's chin in round 2 that put him on skates. And from there, it was a simple matter of sealing the deal for yet another KO victory, and a fight of the night bonus check to go with it. And who can forget his post-fight comments, first about Brown himself and then, of course, his wife Ronda Rousey.
What round did Rousey find answer?
Getting back to the...
Whether it's the first round or the final round, count Derrick Lewis out at your own peril. And when he took on Marcin Tybura, despite the fact that the clock was working against him, Lewis needed just one explosive moment to break his Polish opponent's grip, reverse position, and open Tybura's chin up for a series of punches. And once the Black Beast started swinging, he eventually broke Tybura down for the finish. It was a huge third-round stoppage for Lewis, but trust us, he would move on to a much greater comeback performance shortly after. Alexander Volkov is one of the most underrated heavyweights around today, but unfortunately for him, when he took on Derrick Lewis, all of his good work early on went up in smoke with just 20 seconds left to go. Volkov's range and technical striking was giving Lewis all kinds of problems early on, but with about 20 seconds to go, he found home for a huge punch that staggered his 6'7" opponent. All of a sudden, the Russian was in serious trouble, and it took one more clean connection for Lewis to put him down and eventually put him out cold with the follow-up. And he did this with just 13 seconds left. It was an all-time great comeback KO, and Lewis had pretty much guaranteed his place on highlight reels for years to come with this huge finish. And what about the post-fight interview that followed? This was a moment that made Lewis a legitimate star for the promotion. Let's not forget that this finish came on the main card of the Khabib Nurmagomedov vs. Conor McGregor fight, the most watched MMA event of all time by far. A new mainstream attraction was born on this night. And like we just pointed out, so much can change so quickly in a Derrick Lewis fight. And at the very beginning of this second round in there with the great Alexei Oleinik, Lewis jumped into a flying knee that nailed his opponent in the midsection before then immediately following up with a huge looping hook that dropped the submission specialist to the canvas. People forget just how quick-fast Lewis is when he decides to make that one big explosion, and that's exactly what proved to be Oleinik's downfall here. 1 second this fight was totally up for grabs, the next, Lewis was ground and pounding his way to yet another big knockout win. And that exact same thing happened to Curtis Blaydes, albeit under different circumstances. At first, it looked like we were seeing a new and improved version of Razor Blaydes on the feet, and in many ways, we were. But then, out of nowhere, Lewis countered a Blaydes takedown attempt with a deft uppercut punch that sent him directly to the Shadow Realm. This was definitely one of Lewis's scariest knockout moments. Blaydes' chin may never have been the same after this one, that's for sure. When you have power like Lewis's, you're on the brink of breaking the all-time knockout record for the UFC. Sometimes you just swing first and ask questions later. And in this case, facing off against Chris Daukaus, Lewis obviously felt comfortable enough to unload the gas tank, firing off a series of huge punches that landed with more and more intensity. And while at first it looked like Daukaus was able to handle them and continue to stand and trade, like everyone else, eventually the barrage became way too much for him, and he crumbled to the floor, unable to handle Lewis's record-breaking punches. And with that, a new knockout king was crowned, but he wasn't done just yet. This next one was among the quickest and most violent KOs in his back catalog. Not only did Lewis decide to open up fight with Marcos Rogério de Lima with a flying knee, the knee actually landed well enough to drop Lima to the mat and begin a sequence that landed Lewis in a dominant mount position. From there, all his opponent could do was eat punch after punch. And no matter how much he struggled to escape from the bottom, Lewis had his prey exactly where he needed him, and from there proceeded to pound Lima out for a finish that came just over 30 seconds into the first round. Even by his own lofty standards, this was a rapid and violent showing from the Black Beast. And finally, we come to a knockout, a very recent win from Lewis that once again combines all of the things he tends to do well as a fighter. Not only did he retain his punching power into round 3 against Rodrigo Nascimento, but when he finally landed this fight's pivotal blow, it literally came out of nowhere. In the space of a split second, Nascimento went from upright and in the fight to on skates and getting punished by some trademark finishing blows from the Black Beast. At 39, it's hard to see a route back into title contention for a guy with a limited skill set like Derrick Lewis. But through his power and immense physicality, he has an X factor that would make him a threat to anyone at heavyweight on a good day. He's the knockout king of the UFC for a reason, folks.